most important, in my opinion, issues right now in terms of AI. That there are a lot of talks in the West about the new rise of Chinese applications or websites in terms of AI. And before going to that, I'm going to play a clip in which Indians are asking the CEO of OpenAI or ChatGPT if they would be in the future capable of building something like ChatGPT. And here is the way that the CEO of OpenAI answered them.
Going to startups, I mean, as you know, we've got a very vibrant startup ecosystem in India. Specifically focused on AI, are there spaces where you see, let's say, a startup from India building, you can build on the models, be it ChatGPT and many others. But if you want to build foundational models, how should we think about that? Where is it that a team from India, three super smart engineers with, not 100 million, but let's say 10 million, could actually build something truly substantial?
Look, the way this works is we're going to tell you it's totally hopeless to compete with us on training foundation models. You shouldn't try, and it's your job to try anyway. And I believe both of those things. I think it is pretty hopeless, but
Yeah, the way that this guy was responding, so ignorant, so you see hubris in the way that he's talking to Indians. And right now you see the deep seek and the new Alibaba has a new AI system which is much more complicated. It seems that much more capable than even seek. How do you see the way that this guy was talking about, and right now the outcome coming, and what's going on between the United States and China?
In The Prince, a treatise that Niccolo Machiavelli wrote in the 1500s, he wrote, "Men see things as they wish them to be and not as they are, and are ruined for that." And I see that in the West a lot, including the United States. There's, as you said, there's a lot of hubris and presumption that we are simply better than others, and that they cannot, that they're not capable of competing with us. A few years ago, Harvard University published a paper in Harvard Business Review called "Why China Can't Innovate." And, they convinced themselves of this. They convinced themselves that they are the leaders in technology, that the Indians, the Russians, the Chinese are not capable of the same, and that they will simply have to follow us or buy things from us, pay us for these superior technologies. And we've seen over the last few years that this is simply no longer true. And I think that the faster and the sooner the people in the United States and other parts of the Western world recognize this, the better, because we need to look at what the Chinese, the Russians, the Indians, the other nations are doing right, and get over ourselves and our sense of superiority, and copy what they're doing, because it's not only in these products and services that they create, it's in the process of how they get to that. And we know that China has invested very heavily at the state level in forming STEM talent. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and they are encouraging young men and women to take up studies and careers in these domains. And China is today forming about between 4 and 5 million STEM graduates every year. If you only count advanced degrees, maybe that's about 1 million, but that's still a massive amount of talent. It's a vast talent pool. And when the CEO of DeepSeek went back to China from New York, he was previously working at a hedge fund, he was able to hire talent from top-ranked Chinese university, and they were able in only a few years' time to outflank the Americans. And now, okay, so somebody can dismiss this and say, oh, they stole it from us, which is what a lot of people, as a knee-jerk reaction, they say, oh yeah, they stole it from us. And a few days ago, Donald Trump said that, well, yeah, the Russians have these hypersonic missile technology. Well, they stole that from us too. And so everything that's good that pops up in other parts of the world, well, obviously they must have stole it from us, because they wouldn't have been capable of coming up with that themselves. If we zoom out from this DeepSeek story, and we look at the general trend of things, there's an Australian institute which publishes a comprehensive report about technological advances and innovations in different countries based on papers published and patents filed by state universities, by academia, by private companies. And they've come to the conclusion that China today leads in 60 out of 64 key areas of technology, whereas the United States only leads in 6 or 7 of them. In 2007, which is mere 15 years ago, China was leading only in 7 areas of technology, and the United States was leading in 60. So there's been almost a total inversion. So I think that the Americans have to ask themselves, how did this happen? Why are the Chinese eclipsing us in technology and innovation, in new things? And they have to recognize that there are systemic problems here. And these systemic problems involve this oligarchic system where it is more important to protect the privileged positions of oligarchs, not only in technology, but in other industries as well, than to foster innovation, startups, entrepreneurship, passion at the grassroots levels, to let small companies compete and bring innovation to market. We had the case of Mark Andreessen, who was famously the brain power behind Netscape in the 1990s, when internet was still in its infancy, and he recognized the potential of this industry. He wanted to move into AI. And he might have been able to do exactly the same as the CEO of DeepSeek has done. Maybe better, who knows? But he was discouraged from doing so because he was told, no, we want this area to be dominated by three companies. 3 companies who are friendly with the big oligarchic US establishment, with the state, with the deep state. And so the entry of independent player is being actively discouraged. And we know that these large corporate mastodons, whether they're in tech or pharmaceuticals or defense industries or automotive, whatever you want, they cannot compete with small startups. They can, ultimately, we've seen this play out before in the Soviet Union. And I think that if the United States continues by discouraging small and medium-sized enterprise and throwing big money on these corporate mastodons that they pretend to control, well, then they're going to lose out, and they're going to end up exactly like the Soviet Union. And we've seen this happen in the defense industries, where they're getting completely outflanked by not only the Russians, but also by the Iranians and the Chinese. We see it in healthcare, where the United States has the biggest, most bloated healthcare industry in the world, which also produces the worst outcome of any advanced country in the world. We've seen it in the nuclear technology, where American nuclear technology companies are far, far behind the Chinese and produce. They have older technology. And in the end, when they build their power plants, the electricity they generate is far more expensive than that of the new plants designed by the Chinese or the Russians. And so it's just one thing against the after the other. And if you take a high level view, you see that the United States is falling behind other countries in the world. They should recognize it, and they should go back to the drawing board and try to see what the others are doing right, what we're doing wrong, what the Americans are doing wrong, and correct course. Now, history is not kind to these kinds of changes of course, because you have vested interests who will rather sacrifice the nation's position and prestige than part with any part of their own privilege and advantage. So I think that Donald Trump and his government will have a very, very hard time tackling these vested interests, if they'll even try, if they even recognize that there's a problem. I don't know. If Donald Trump comes out and says, "Oh, Russians have hypersonic technology because they stole it from us," then that's, again, an indication that he too wants to see things as he wishes them to be rather than the way they are.
Donald Trump said on his social media he is threatening BRICS countries with 100% tariffs on them, and he's talking about the new currency, a new currency for BRICS. And Peskov responded that we were never after a new currency for BRICS. We are inventing, or we are after, a new system of trades. What's your take on what is happening in the mind of Donald Trump and the people who are giving him information? Is that right? Is BRICS looking for a new currency?
Okay, allow me to, burst out laughing, because this proves that Mr. Disco Inferno himself, as I thought you might call him to Sputnik this week, and his coterie, people all around him, they don't have a bloody clue what BRICS is actually doing. Obviously, they don't know anything that was discussed at the summit in Kazan in October, 1 month before the American election. Obviously, they haven't tracked what BRICS did last year and what they plan to do ahead in terms of trying to fine-tune the international system, financial, geoeconomic, but not coming with a new BRICS currency. This is something that they have said repeatedly over and over again, especially during last year in all those meetings, the preparatory meetings for Kazan, the BRICS Business Council meetings, coming from Putin, from Lavrov, from Ryabkov, from everybody. So obviously these people don't do their homework, which is more than obvious when it comes to how the Beltway and Washington work. They have no clue about the rest of the world, period. And this is not stopping with this new administration. And obviously Peskov, with the patience of 10,000 Buddhist monks in a cave in Gansu province, he has to say, look, this is not what we're doing. We're trying to find alternative modes of payment, which is what they are actually doing. And this is what they are actually implementing. So BRICS currency, it's irrelevant at this point, because what we're already seeing, starting with bilateral Russia-China relations, where 95% or so is already in yuan and rubles, is trading in their own currencies, which is something more than obvious, bypassing the US dollar without saying that you're bypassing the US dollar. You're just ignoring the US dollar. It's a completely different story, which is what's going to happen from now on. Even more forcefully between Iran and Russia after they signed the strategic partnership. everything will be in their local, all their trade is going to be in their local currencies. And this is going to spread out across the BRICS. Even so-called BRICS that are not exactly BRICS because they are on the fence like Saudi Arabia, it's the rise of the petro yuan, which is already a reality. So obviously, this is too complicated for Trump to, he doesn't read, and he doesn't read the most important non-US think tank reports saying what's going on geoeconomically across the world. So he spills out something that, coming from a president of the US, is frankly stupid, because he is condemning something that is not even happening.
And here comes the question in the mind of the Trump administration. It seems that not only a BRICS currency, but they're trying to force these countries to trade in US dollar. That's the
Exactly.
main reason that they're talking this way. But how is that going to happen if they put tremendous sanctions on Russia, for example, on Iran, on other countries? At the same time, you want them to use US dollar. You don't you sanction them, and you want on the two things that don't come together in any
Of
sort of
course not.
technology.
You're right, Dima. First of all, the absurdity of ignoring what the global, not the rest of the world, the global majority is trying to do. That's number one. Number two, the key point is what Michael Hudson has explained in his latest essay. And I included the link in this Disco Inferno column earlier this week. Everybody should read Michael's latest essay. You can read it in English at his website or at globalsouth.co. There are already translations in Portuguese and in Spanish. Very, very important. He's basically saying that Trump has declared war against the rest of the world. Absolutely correct, because what he's just reaffirmed with his 100% tariffs coming on BRICS. And the most important point is that this war is intrinsically related to what Michael says is the main problem, which is foreign debt in US dollars. Most of the global South, their foreign debt to IMF, World Bank, international financial system, loan sharks, the usual suspects, right, is in US dollars. It's essentially unpayable. Or if you pay what you owe to these loan sharks, you'll never develop as a sovereign nation. So Michael goes straight to the point. He says, if there is not a solution, or if the global South as a whole does not decide to, we're not going to pay this foreign debt anymore, because they are paying interest over interest over interest over interest. So in the end, they'll spend their several lifetimes paying the debt. If you don't solve this problem, you don't solve the problem of development of a great deal of the global South. Obviously, from an American point of view, this is what they want this to keep going, because this is how they exploit essentially the rest of the world. When they don't go straight for plunder and destroying nations or bombing nations into democracy, this is how they do it. It's a financial op. It's basically interest over interest on this eternal foreign debt. So that's why everyone should read that essay to look at the big picture. And obviously, Trump would never frame it this way, because only analysts who understand how the empire works, they frame it this way. The empire is a completely different operation, because it's an empire of plunder. And based on what Michael has described in detail was fire, financialization forever on everything, and inbuilt in that marketization of everything, including the way they want to marketize artificial intelligence. And then the Chinese with DeepSeek and with others that will be coming, they broke completely this business model in these past few days. The insurance industry all over the world is basically controlled by Atlanticist interests, and real estate speculation. So this is the basis of the empire of plunder is fire, as defined by Michael. So if you don't try to dismantle fire and dismantle the foreign debt forever, it's impossible for the global south, BRICS or no BRICS, to keep developing. So this is the absolute key point. Absolute key point, you know. And now the stage is set because instinctively Trump has already launched a war against the BRICS. This is something that many of us had been saying even before the inauguration. There's going to be a war against BRICS in 2025. Yes, and that's it. Now it's on. So now it's up to BRICS and other multilateral organizations working closely to BRICS to devise their, I would say, more streamlined game planning on parallel systems and alternative payment systems, and more getting totally into payment settlements in their own currencies, intra BRICS and BRICS with the outsiders in the global majority. So this is the big geoeconomic game during the Trump presidency and beyond. In fact,
Canada and Mexico.
Mexico, yes,
And
25%.
why is he starting this way? And what's the importance of that for Donald Trump?
Well, it's basically reintegrated the North American market and subordinating the North American market to the empire completely. You do the same our way or the highway. If you don't know what we want, we're going to slap sanctions on you ad infinitum. And the next in line is going to be the EU, probably in a matter of a few weeks after that, or maximum March, mid-March, etc. And then China. And then we're going to have the real deal, Nima. I'm sure our audience remembers the tsunami of Trump sanctions against China. The big ones, I think, starting 2018. He came to power early 2017, and the big tsunami came in 2018, especially on China's tech sector. Just look at the China tech sector now in 2025, where, according to latest reports in the tech industry everywhere, China is ahead of the US in virtually everything. It's like a matter of more than 80% of all vital industrial and tech sectors. So this is part of what the Chinese had planned way before Trump 1.0, their program Made in China 2025, which even after Trump sanctions, they kept doing what they had planned without calling it Made in China 2025. Very Chinese. And that explains everything, including the DeepSeek breakthrough, which apparently, at least from the point of view of Silicon Valley and Wall Street, came out of nowhere. No, if you were following what the Chinese were doing, it came out of a very specific investment and technology center program, part of the Made in China 2025. If you see by item, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, solar panels, electric vehicles, etc. Everything was detailed by the Chinese already in the past decade, in detail, everything. And the great thing about centralized socialist economy, but based on meritocracy, not based on Wall Street gains, is that the results are tangible. And when they happen, everybody, how did they do that? It's very simple. Planning, competence, meritocracy, high-level standards at the best Chinese universities. For instance, all those kids and all these guys who are working on DeepSeek, they graduated on the top Chinese universities. Not that they were important from Yale or Ivy or any Ivy League. No, indigenous, local. So this is how you do it, you know. And obviously, in terms of the vision, the overall vision for Chinese tech, we can say it's people-centered, applying one of their metaphors. Very, Xi Jinping is very fond of these metaphors. It is people-centered. It's not stock exchange center. And that's all the difference. That's all you need to know.
I don't know if you watched the video in which the CEO of OpenAI, ChatGPT, was talking with Indians, and he said that you're not able to. They were asking him if they would be able to make a new AI for Indians. He said that that's not possible. Don't go that way. You're gonna waste your time doing this. And you see right now, China is able to put something substantial, something important, as you see, DeepSeek, and we've learned about Alibaba.
Alibaba,
Yeah,
their model, exactly.
it's totally game changer, and it shows how China is changing the game in terms of technology, in terms of the way that you can fight and defeat your enemy or your rival. And at the same time, Donald Trump is talking about the Iron Dome for the United States. It's unbelievable. You look at the way that they see it. It's all about military in their mind. It's
Of
not
course.
going to change.
And based on paradigms that have proven themselves to be failing all across the spectrum. The Iron Dome in Israel is a joke. The Houthis proved that it's a joke. The Iranians proved that it's a joke. And he wants to do an Iron Dome in the US. It will be the equivalent of an F-35 program multiplied by 10. Look at the F-35. We don't need to say anything about it. Now they crash spontaneously. Probably there's a Zeus, a Thunderbolt. By the way, another sneak. Look what this is one of the. They gave me another sneak this week, and the great thing, Lima, is that inside you have actual snakes. They don't know. So this is what the Americans are doing. We have an orange snake, most powerful symbol, which they don't. And inside you have, okay, you can maybe eat this thing. The Russians, no. You can eat this thing, but you actually have the real orange snake, which was the product of what? Physics, mathematics, great universities, lots of research coming, out of decades of research. And then you have Orishnik, which is the practical result. Same thing with the Chinese AI models. Everything was planned, and everything is the fruit of deep research. It's not blah, blah, blah for Wall Street shareholders. It's the absolute mega difference between casino capitalism, casino neoliberalism, and neoliberal exploitation and marketization of everything, including life itself, and meritocratic systems like the Chinese system, based on study, lots of study and application, and the Soviet then Russian system, which in terms of high technology is in a class by itself as well.